Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Ignorant Intellectual on Media. Today, I thought we would do a private sale haul. I bought a bunch of items. I sold a bunch of items lately, so I had some extra money, so I decided to go onto Facebook Marketplace and look for some upper level movies and stuff like boutique cinema label, since I had some money on me that I could spend, right? And I ended up finding some pretty good stuff, so I thought I'd show it to you. All right, so let's get started. It's mostly movies. There's a couple of books, so let's get those books out of the way first. All right, first is The Little Prince by Antoine de Saint-Exupéry. All right, so he's a Frenchman, and he wrote this in French and English, and it's basically a kid's story wrapped up in an adult story, basically. It's got both levels. It's enjoyable for the kid because it's kind of like a fantasy novel about a little boy who travels around the world and has his own planet, or asteroid actually, and he travels to Earth and he meets a pilot that's stuck in the desert because his plane broke down. But it has two levels. It has a kid's level and then it has an adult like wisdom type of level. It's one of the most enjoyable reads I've ever read, and it's quite short. Basically, this is the boy. He has a asteroid which has a nice rose on it. It lives on an asteroid, very small asteroid. It has 3 volcanoes. One's active, 2 aren't, and he has a rose. And he ends up leaving to travel around the universe because he's kind of bored or whatever, right? And he ends up on Earth, like I said. Anyways, it's basically a philosophical novel wrapped up into a children's story. It kind of reminds me of Jonathan Livingston Seagull, if you've ever read that one as well. Those type of stories are really enjoyable to read because they're kind of simple, but they're not so simple if you read into them, right? So, all right, so that's The Little Prince. If you haven't read that, I would suggest you do. The other one is one of the classic 19th century novels, Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte. I spoke about this novel in previous videos, so I'm not going to go into it much. I found it for relatively cheap, and it's in perfect condition. It's like it's new, like nobody even read it. It's like gorgeous, and it's the newest version of the Penguin Classics. You know, the newest cover. It's a really nice edition. These look really good on the shelf too. The problem with these books though is because they're made of cheap paper. You know, they're made for budgets, right? So students will use the Penguin Classics and the Oxford, World's Classic. Those things they're not meant to last. They're meant to be read, and because if you notice, they'll fall apart, and over time it browns, right? But if you'd like them on the shelf, they look really nice on the shelf. If you see that, if you could imagine a whole shelf going across uniform with all the classics, all the world's classics, they're really nice editions. They're hard to keep in mint condition though because they're black, right? So any scuff makes that scuff turn white, and it's really noticeable in the black. But if you put it in a bag, like you can get them off the internet. They're usually used for like DVDs or Blu-rays or 4Ks or whatever, but you can also use them different size ones. You can use them for books if you want to protect the book, like booksellers will use them for older paperbacks, like the paperbacks from, let's say, the 1930s or 40s. They'll put it in a nice plastic bag to save it, otherwise it'll fall apart even more than it probably already has, right? So if you put it, and then you put them all across the shelf, they look really nice. All right, so that's Jane Eyre by Bronte. All right, so let's get into some movies. All right, so I'm a big fan of Indicator. It's a British boutique label, and they put out some really good movies, all right? And they're numbered like the Criterion Collection, so I collect them. There's 3 main numbered movie series that I collect. I collect the Criterion Collection, like most people. I also collect the Indicator collection. I also collect The Masters of Cinema by Eureka. That's a really good collection of movies as well. All right, so the first one and you don't find them all that often in North America, although they've expanded into North America, if I remember correctly. Indicator has. I think they have a U.S. Address now, but don't quote me on that. I'd have to look. But they're popular in Great Britain. In the UK, they're popular. So, and I found two for a reasonable price, both still new, not even opened. All right. So the first one is the Brainiac. All right. This is a Chano Urota film, and surprisingly, I had this in a DVD. But this is a nice Blu-ray, so I thought I'd pick it up. And it's packaged. The person that sold it to me didn't even watch it, so it's interesting how that happens. I have a bunch of those in my collection as well, where you'll see a good price on something, so you pick it up, but you have like 20 things to watch before it, and maybe 2 years later you may watch it, you know what I mean? But then maybe something happens and you want to sell some stuff. So, all right, so the Brainiac. I don't know much about this one. It's a Mexican horror film, all right? And then the other one, so this is numbered 383 in the collection, all right? And then I found this nice, beautiful box set of two films, all right? These are also, let me double check before I look like an idiot. I think these are Mexican horrors as well. I think it was selling like Mexican horror films, right? So this is two. This is El Vampiro and two blood-sucking tales from Mexico. Yeah. All right. So, the Vampire and the Vampire's Coffin. All right. So it comes with a nice booklet. It comes with two Blu-rays and a nice hard box set, numbered. So they're numbered, both numbered. So you can put them in either this way or put it on your shelf this way. I usually put it on my shelf this way. And it's a limited edition. It's number 4042 out of 8,000. So they made 8,000 of these. I don't know. Is 8,000? Can you consider 8,000 limited? I don't know. Anyway, so it's still new. It's still in its packaging. So that's kind of cool. I collected them less for the movies and more for the numbering on the spine, which is kind of ridiculous if you think about it. But if I want to explore some Mexican horrors, I have it. Same guy, I also found a new Kino Lorber studio classic of Mr. Wong. You know, the 5 films put out in the 30s and 40s of Mr. Wong. I think Boris Karloff was in 4 of the 5 of them, but I think the 5th one, it was a different actor. Anyway, so it's a nice, and it's new. It's funny how though when they sell something new with a slipcover, they never protect the slipcover. They always put the plastic around the Blu-ray, and then the slipcover goes over top of it afterwards, and the slipcover isn't protected. So then you end up getting damage to the slipcover when you go buy it or have it sent to you, right? So here's some damage right there. Right? So then you got to put another plastic thing over it to protect it, right? So basically, this is 5 movies. It's Mr. Wong, Detective, The Mystery of Mr. Wong in Chinatown, The Fatal Hour, and Doomed to Die, a.k.a. Mystery of the Wentworth Castle. All right, so basically from 1938 to 1940, these 5 films were made. Now, are these controversial films these days? Because it's Boris Karloff is not Asian, right? But he's playing an Asian detective. Now, I don't know if there's any like stereotypical language in it, you know, like that may seem racist. I don't know, but I think Mr. Wong is shown in a positive light, since he is the detective that ends up, you know, solving all the crimes. He's basically like an Asian Sherlock Holmes, right? So, but having a white guy dress up looking like an Asian, I don't think that movie could be made today, could it? Do you think it could be made today? Maybe if it was like a satire. Oh, some sort of comedy or whatever, but I'm not sure if you'd be able to pull that off anymore, right? Do you think these are racist movies? Leave it in the comments, let me know. All right, so that's from one collector. Then I got a bunch from another. Well, I got two from this guy, another guy. I got, so those three I got from one guy, and these two I got from another guy. That's Play Misty for me. This stars Clint Eastwood, and is it who? I think it's Donna. Yeah, Donna Mills. Jessica. Oh, hold on. Play Misty for me. Who is the one that tries to kill him? Jessica Walter. Yes, Jessica Walter. So that's Jessica Walter, and that's Clint Eastwood. Basically, this is Clint Eastwood's first film. Not first film acting, but first film directing. And it's basically, he's a radio guy, right? He's on the radio, and he gets an admirer who calls him up all the time. He's on late night radio, and she asks him always to play the song Misty, right? So hence the title Play Misty for me. But then she ends up accidentally on purpose meeting up with him, and then they start having a torrid affair or whatever, right? And but then he dumps her or whatever, and then she doesn't take that too well, and then she decides to goes all fatal attraction on his ass, right? So it's quite a cool thriller, being his first directing movie. So I had it on Blu-ray. I had it on DVD. I have it on DVD, but I didn't have it on Blu-ray. So that one is an upgrade. And then I found John Carpenter's Someone Who's Watching Me, which is basically a pretty creepy movie. I don't know if you've ever watched it, but this film is about a girl who lives in an apartment building, and then across the way there's a peeping Tom that keeps watching her. And then he goes further than just being a peeping Tom. He starts calling her and starts doing other things that frighten her, and then she goes into investigation mode, trying to find out who this guy is, right? And then it starts getting really interesting. Let's put it that way. All right, so Carpenter is great with suspense and horror, and doing almost anything. Oop, I lost my doing almost anything. My favorite is Escape from New York. That's my favorite film by him, but others have others that are their favorites. All right, so that's Someone Watching Me. If you haven't watched that film, give it a try. And then I went on Amazon to see if there's any good Black Friday deals. This one. All right, so I bought this off Amazon. It was like $12 or something. So, meaning there's 3 films on it, $12. That's like $4 per film. So that's not a bad deal, right? All on Blu-ray. Now, I already had all 3 of these movies. I had Once Upon a Time in Mexico, and then I had El Mariachi and Desperado in a two DVD set. So I had all 3 on DVD. So this is basically another upgrade as well, right? So, and instead of it being that thick on my shelf, it's only that thick on my shelf. So it saves. I have a room for another movie, right? So that's always good if you can find films. My favorite is when they take a director and they do a large amount of his films. Like I just picked up Alfred Hitchcock, nice box set of 15 films. There was another one that like 6 or 7 of Mel Brooks films all in one set. That was really nice. I picked up as well a while back. So the way that I organize my library is I organize most of it because I collect certain directors, and those are the movies I more concentrate on. But I do have a section of just films because I like the films, but I don't collect the director. But anyways, it's when they put out a set of movies, I like those sets to be director oriented, right, rather than actor oriented. They may, like I bought a while back from Walmart an Eddie Murphy collection that had like the Beverly Hills Cop films, 48 Hours films, and other films of his together in one set. but it means that all the different directors are in that, and then I organize my library, and it's not organized by actor, right? So where do you put that? Well, you got to put it by actor in the section that isn't by the director. But then you already have the movie, so then you don't have that movie to put in your director slot. So then when you look it up on your database, you have the movie, and maybe you want to watch it, but you don't recall buying, let's say, an Eddie Murphy collection. So you're not sure where that movie is. You would know where it was if it was in your director's pile, but you wouldn't know if it was in the regular pile. You know what I mean? So it's like sometimes movies go missing, and when you try to find them in your library, you have a difficult time finding them, especially actor ones. Like I have some, over here I have Bette Davis's films. Over here I have some Cary Grant films, right? That kind of thing. But unless you know what they are, sometimes they'll go lost when you're trying to find them, because you don't realize that it's not in the director or the name of the movie. It's actually in the actor, right? So those ones I don't like as much as, like this one is great because it's all Rodriguez's film, Robert Rodriguez films, right? So I can just put it in the Robert Rodriguez section. If I want to watch any of these 3 films, I know where to find them, right? And save some shelf space as well. But it'd be cool if they have something maybe twice as thick and have like 10 of his movies, right? All in one. Save so much space, right? So anyways, these are 3 of his early films, all starring Antonio Banderas. They're kind of cool and slick, you know what I mean? It's like Rodriguez tries to be like, a slick, kind of cool director when it comes to his like action and suspense films, right? So, and he is a good director, but these 3 films aren't his best. He gets better later on in his career, not as good in his early, like Once Upon a Time in Mexico. I don't think it holds up to all the Once Upon a Time movies that are around. How about you? Do you think it does? Like Once Upon a Time in America, or Once Upon a Time in the West, or Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I don't think Once Upon a Time in Mexico really holds up compared to those 3 films, but it might just be me. Anyways, they're all fun movies to watch, and if you like Antonio Banderas, well, there you go. He's in all 3 of them. All right, so I picked that up as a replacement and saved some shelf space. All right, and then another guy had 3 Steelbooks. All right, well, he had more than 3, but he either wanted too much for some of them, or I don't collect that movie. I didn't like the movie or whatever, so I don't collect that movie. But he had 3 that I did collect, and that is, the first one is The Incredibles 2. All right, so the second of the Incredibles films. They're really fun to watch. Pixar is really, really good animation studio, and their stories are really good for the most part, anyways. And this was quite a fun film to watch. If you haven't watched it, you can watch it with your kids as well. All right, so I have a nice steelbook of it. I think I have The Incredibles on Blu-ray, but I don't think I have it on a steelbook Blu-ray, so I'll keep looking for that. Now we're talking about Quentin Tarantino in a second. Here's Django Unchained. All right, the D is silent. A nice steelbook. All right. This is quite a fun film. The funniest part of the film is knowing that. So it's a film taking place in when slavery was still legal in the United States, and Leonardo DiCaprio plays a slave owner, right? And it was like, and Samuel L. Jackson, man, he plays what I mean? They interviewed Samuel L. Jackson about this film. They said he thought that maybe Tarantino wanted him to get killed because he was like the most nastiest black slave guy in the world. And it's like such a hated character if you've ever seen the film. But what's even funnier than that is how uncomfortable Leonardo DiCaprio was in the movie using the N-word, right? because we're all us white guys are conditioned never to say that word, right? Ever, right? I mean, you don't even say it even if you are racist to a racist friend of yours, just in case there's you know an African American within earshot of it, right? Do you understand what I mean? It's like the utmost rude, word, right? And nobody's ever surprised if they get punched in the face when they use it, right? So he's so uncomfortable. Just watch him when he's in the film. He has to overcome his natural instinct not to say that word, right? I don't know if it shows up. Maybe it's just really subtle. But they did an interview with him, and he said, no, they did an interview with Samuel L. Jackson. It was in the same interview with Samuel L. Jackson talking about the film and how nasty a character he was in that film. And he's, Quentin Tarantino really likes Samuel L. Jackson as an actor. So every film that he makes, Samuel L. Jackson is usually in it. But many of the times he plays a really nasty guy. You know what I mean? And it's like, and in this film he plays like the worst black guy you can think of, right? So, anyway, and then DiCaprio with having to overcome his reticence of saying the N-word or whatever, right? So it's quite funny. But the film is really good. It's basically about a British bounty hunter who hooks up with a slave, basically a slave, played by Jamie Foxx, and he's the bounty hunter's British. He doesn't agree with slavery, so he kind of treats Jamie Foxx as an equal. He allows him to ride a horse and gives him guns and everything. They go hunting for people, right? They end up on the plantation of Leonardo DiCaprio looking for a bounty on somebody of his employ, I think, if I remember correctly. Anyways, it's quite a fun movie, but yeah, it's it takes place in the South during slavery days, and you won't forget the Samuel L. Jackson character in that film. You'll never forget that character. It's probably his best role, or I kind of liked him in. Oh, I hear my son coming downstairs. And I kind of like Samuel L. Jackson's character in Tarantino's best film, Pulp Fiction. All right, so, but this has gotten a little bit of damage on it. I'll have to protect it. All right, and the third Blu-ray. See what happens when you don't protect your Steelbooks. All right, and they're up against other movies. Can you see the scratches right there? So you really need the really delicate things. The coating on the paint over the steel is really easy to scratch, right? So you got to be careful with it. All right. The third is Nightcrawler, starring Jake Gyllenhaal, right? So this is Nightcrawler. That's a nice Steelbook Blu-ray. I've seen this film. Is he? But I don't remember it. I don't remember it very well. He like goes around. He's like an ambulance chaser, but at night trying to get videos or being a reporter, I think, if I remember correctly. All right. So and then another guy had this film, Cross of Iron. I'm a Sam Peckinpah fan, and I collect Sam Peckinpah films. And this film I did not have. And this is basically about World War II, but they kind of take the German side of it, so it's all German soldiers, right? It's when they're losing the war, right? And it's a pretty good film. Peckinpah usually makes pretty good films, but Straw Dogs is probably his best film. So this one wasn't bad either, but it's a run-of-the-mill horror film overall. I also found Contagion. This one is really COVID-19 eerie. It's like it came out before COVID-19, And then COVID-19 came out, and you can see almost the same freaking protocols being taken in this as you did in COVID-19, right? So it's a kind of a, if you want to know, this film might be like, it's not of its age right now, but maybe, you know, the children that were born during COVID, when they hit their 20s, like, you know, like 15, 20 years from now or whatever, and they look back and they get this film, they ask their parents about what it was like during the pandemic, and their parents will just tell them to come see this film, and then they'll know what it was like, right? So, and the last film is Slumber Party Massacre, one of those 80s slasher films. It was okay. It was your atypical slasher film with a bad guy, a bunch of high school girls get together. One of the girls' parents has gone out of town, so she invites all of her girlfriends over, and they have a slumber party. But then there's a bad guy with one of these long drills. And the moral of the story of that film is, have a machete in your house. It will help you a lot. Okay. All right. Okay. So that's everything that I picked up. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, leave me a thumbs up. Think about subscribing. We talk about physical media all the time on this channel, and I'll talk to you in my next video. You have a great day, and bye for now.